asked a few weeks ago that wasn't really the whole focus of the video, but this time it is. And I answered too, but I lied a little, I realized afterward, which I'll correct in a second. But news about upcoming Mercyful Fate, Exodus, and Dream Theater albums, all legacy bands, surfaced last week, and it made me wonder, who was the first whatever metal band you ever heard? That question's specific to death, black, and grind, because those are three genres I have very specific memories for. But by all means, if you got similar experiences with others like doom or thrash or something, do feel free to weigh in. So yeah, who was the first death metal band you remember hearing? The lie I told accidentally was that it was Cannibal Corpse in '94 in the Ace Ventura movie. However, when I thought back a little, I realized that wasn't true, because actually, the very first death metal band I'd heard was Macabre from Chicago. It was the Behind the Wall Asleep EP I'd gotten as a gift, and I'd never heard anything like that before, because up to that point, my life was just GNR, Kiss, Maiden, and Danzig. But here was this completely new thing, and yeah, there you go. Now, it's worth noting that not till the third song on that album, Slaughter Thy Poser, did a semblance of what most think of as death metal show up, because the first song's a pretty regular beat, and the second's the Black Sabbath cover, but then it starts to get kind of blasty and Slaughter Thy Poser. And then the final song, Freeze Dried Man, is another that's just like a regular beat. Also, another important thing about Macabre too is that in my fairly limited knowledge of death metal, I can't think of any other band that uses a high-pitched growl, if you will. So they're pretty damn original in that regard. But yeah, man, so Macabre, if you don't know them, check them out. They're fun as hell. But yeah, so who was it for you? Who was the first death metal band you heard? I'd be curious if it also wasn't Cannibal Corpse for other people my age who also saw Ace when they were a kid. Semi-related side note, speaking of the word poser, did anybody see Ricky Rackman's Facebook post the other day when he was asking, like, what is a, quote, poser? I always just thought it was something you only thought about when you're a teenager or something, you know? I mean, I know I used that word in my last video about Slayer, but I figured most people just know it was a joke. Is that still a concern for some people past the age of, like, 20? I mean, I think it was just as much of a surprise for him as it was for me. But alright, next up, and this one's really memorable for me, the first black metal band I'd ever heard. So it was like early summer '96, and I'm with my family in Yonkers, New York, with some Mortician and Immolation. Everybody had gone to bed, and the room that I was staying in didn't have a TV, only a radio, and I knew there was a station that would play extreme stuff, which I think it might have been FMU, but I could be wrong. But anyway, I specifically remember him playing Biohazard for one, but then all of a sudden this other thing comes on, this other band that I can only describe as being like, if Maiden were to go extreme. It started out with this pretty, like, yeah, Maiden kind of beat, pretty fast, and even the riff was kind of Maiden-y too. And the singer wasn't screamy in the song yet, but he was definitely unlike anything I'd ever heard. But then all of a sudden it switched to this totally, like, grindy, what I'd come to learn was black metal, this grindy thing with these really scary sounding screamy vocals that they weren't guttural like in death metal, but instead, like, I don't know, just kind of like middle pitched, but scary sounding. And then it had this part with this real keyboardy kind of symphony thing, but it definitely wasn't pronounced enough to qualify as symphonic, like what Dimmu Borgir turned into, or Cradle of Filth or something. It was just a short, atmospheric sort of thing. But ultimately, I was fascinated by it, and that song created the template for what black metal was in my head. The band was Ancient, and the song's called The Curse off their album The Canian Chronicle on Metal Blade. I didn't actually know that for sure until later that year when I'd gotten the Metal Meister Metal Blade compilation, and I got to track 12, and I was like, holy shit, this is that band I heard. And that's one of the reasons that to this day I love Ancient. I got a bunch of surface level favorites for black metal, some of the obvious like Emperor and Darkthrone, but I also like a few others like Negator and 1349, and Satyricon awesome too. But Ancient kind of stands in their own, I think, because they're like an 8-sided die in many of their songs, which, by the way, that's yet another reason really no two of their songs sound alike, so they're all pretty memorable. But on top of that, oftentimes they contain several like parts, if you will, without it being annoying or anything. Like, it'll be mid-paced and then it'll turn blasty and then maybe go atmospheric and then get blasty again and end off mid-paced or something. But all in all, they make you feel like you're on a really fun adventure, and I don't know, I love it, man. Canian Chronicle, Mad Grandiose Blood Fiends, the Trolltar EP, and Svartalheim are all awesome. They're great places to start. You know, I'm thinking about it now, and like, Ancient's a kind of unrefined, slightly nastier version of what Cradle of Filth was in their early days. Kind of like on Dusk and even Cruelty to a degree. I like those records, by the way. So yeah, do you remember the first black metal band you ever heard? I think most people would, because that and death metal are both very like, what the fuck is this shit sort of sounds, you know? Okay, and lastly, Grindcore. Now, I do remember who it was, but I'd rather not say the full name out loud in case any of my loved ones see this. Any of those besides you, of course. But it was AC. Rest in peace, Seth and Josh. They were local to where I grew up. And I think, like many people in the Massachusetts and New Hampshire metal scene at the time, you probably got a few of your own Seth Putnam stories. I certainly do. I could absolutely 100% tell the full, true, actual Seth Putnam and Jamie Hatebreed story about Metal Fest 2001 at the Palladium in Worcester. And it was not at all like how Seth retold it on his website years ago. But I got caught up in it myself, my best friend and I, and yeah, man. But to be honest, I think the fact that he came up with something that was just such total bullshit after the fact made it even funnier. But, ah, man, truly rest in peace, Seth. But yeah, so that same friend Dan, who also played guitar in Since the Flood for a while, hardcore band that had a release on Metal Blade, he got I Like It When You Die in 8th grade, and I'd heard of the band for a long time before that, but I'd never actually listened to them before. AC, that to me is honestly what grindcore really is. I know tons of stuff about music subjective, but I mean, you hear bands like Nasum being called grindcore, and I'm just like, I don't know, I feel like that stuff's just way too tight and organized, and it's just death metal to me. Kind of the same thing with Cephalic Carnage and Agoraphobic Nosebleed, which, don't get me wrong, I love both those bands, but they're really both like, you know, they're really tight, and I think the essence of what makes something grind is when it's extremely loose and just fucking sounds like shit and fast as hell, and all the songs are just a bunch of noise or something. Ass Sucks, another one I liked. I had the Misery Index album and I liked that a lot. But even them, they had like riffs and stuff and organization, but I don't know, what the hell do I know? But yeah, man, the other stuff, thrash, I can't really remember who I heard first. It was probably Slayer. Hardcore, actually I do remember that. It was Marauder on the Identity Century Media compilation, and holy shit, man, to this day, I really don't think there's a more legitimately dangerous sounding voice than Jorge's. Guy sounds like a chainsaw. That band's just awesome though, man. All 4 of their studio albums are damn good. Rest in peace, Sob. But yeah, those compilation albums back in the day were really helpful for discovering new stuff, I think. The Metal Meister one in particular for me, because that was the first time I'd heard Cannibal Corpse with Corpse Grinder, because it had Mummified and Barbed Wire on it from Bio, and Enemy Inside from Haunted, 6 Feet Under's first album, and Into the Unknown from Mercyful. That's a great album, man, Into the Unknown. I think it's right underneath Melissa and Don't Break the Oath. But yeah, dude, there you go. I'll shut up now, because if I don't, I could go all day, but we're apparently not too far away from new Dream Theater and Exodus and Mercyful Fate albums, so I was just thinking like, who was everyone's first, you know? But alright, if you liked the video, cool, man. Maybe you can give it a thumbs up, or if you just like hearing somebody bullshit about heavy metal, then you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time on Concrete Spew, but until then, stay crazy, my friends.